Imagine, if you will, the impact of the 14th Amendment on presidential candidates. This amendment, part of the very fabric of our Constitution, bars anyone who has engaged in insurrection or rebellion from holding federal office. Yet, the lawyers of a former president argue that this clause doesn't apply to the president. What does this mean for our elections and, more importantly, for our democracy? In the final days of 2023, a precedent was set when the Colorado Supreme Court ruled that a former president, Donald Trump, was disqualified from running for president and holding office. The court agreed with a lower district court that Trump incited protesters before the infamous January 6th Capitol riot, thus violating the 14th Amendment. The ruling was stayed until January, allowing time for an appeal. Trump's campaign did not waste time. They appealed the decision to the U.S. Supreme Court, which has now agreed to take up the case. The decision by the Colorado Supreme Court marks the first time in U.S. history that the 14th Amendment has been used to disqualify a presidential candidate from the ballot. Now, the Supreme Court will, for the first time, consider how to interpret the clause. The implications are significant. Trump's lawyers argue that the Colorado Supreme Court's decision would unconstitutionally disenfranchise millions of Colorado voters and potentially tens of millions of voters nationwide. The case isn't just about Trump. It's about the future of our electoral process. It's about interpreting a constitutional amendment in a way that could change the course of future elections. The Supreme Court has expedited their consideration of the case. Oral arguments are scheduled for February 8th, and Trump's legal team is due to file their opening brief by January 18th. The group arguing for Trump's disqualification must submit its argument by January 31st. The U.S. Supreme Court, with its conservative majority, including 3 justices appointed by Trump during his presidency, has drawn comparisons to the 2000 presidential election between George Bush and Al Gore. The conservative majority court's decision to halt Florida's vote recount essentially handed victory to Mr. Bush. The timeline for this case is tight. State primary elections are fast approaching, and the court's decision is expected before the Super Tuesday primary election in March. The stakes are high, and the nation watches with bated breath. Will the Supreme Court uphold the Colorado ruling, or will they allow Trump to stay on the ballot? The answer to this question is not just about one man's political future. It's about the interpretation of our Constitution and the future of our democracy. So we wait. We wait for the Supreme Court to decide, to interpret, to rule. And in the meantime, we ponder the impact of the 14th Amendment on our presidential candidates and our electoral process. We ponder what this means for our democracy. The wheels of justice are in motion, and as they turn, they shape the course of our nation's history.